So as we know, ICOSA is sort of a derivative of HEX, and it's supposed to kind of match specifically the T share slash B share. So it's supposed to maintain at least some sort of value between HEX and that T share. So usually right now we're sitting at around. I could take a look at the chart. Let's go on to Dex Screener, pull up ICOSA. We'll use the one on PulseChain. But over here, what we're going to do is we're going to switch the price in HEX. And now what we're doing is, instead of denominating ICOSA in US dollars, we're denominating it in HEX. So ICOSA right now costs 2.7 HEX, not dollars, but HEX. The ceiling price for ICOSA, we can check over here on HEX model. I think it's closer to like 50 right now. So over here, we're down 95% from the ARB ceiling, which is where you could create an HSI, send it into the buyback, mint ICOSA, and sell your ICOSA for a profit. That would be slightly above the ARB ceiling. The ARB ceiling is when you break even essentially doing that, excluding like the gas fees and stuff. So right now, ICOSA and HEX, this ratio that we were just looking at on the Dex Screener from 2 could technically rise up to 50 before any sort of arbitrage opportunity will present itself. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to trade in their HSIs before it hits 50, but that just means that people aren't going to be able to necessarily arbitrage the price down before it hits 50 HEX per ICOSA. Now, currently we're sitting pretty near the all-time lows of 2.7 HEX per ICOSA. We've never really seen the chart go this low in terms of HEX. As you can see here, when PulseChain launched, we were sitting closer to like 15 HEX per ICOSA. But if we take a look over here at the spreadsheet, we could see this is the current HEX price and this is the current ICOSA price. I believe these are the Ethereum versions. And then these are kind of like theoretical T-share rates. I know we've sort of exceeded this now, but how it works is the higher the T-share rate is, the greater that ceiling prices. So if the T-share rate were to go to 50,000, we could input it here. So 50, 1, 2, 3. And you could see here the HEX to ICOSA ceiling will raise basically from 72 to 136. If the T-share rate were to, or when the T-share rate goes from 36,000 basically to about 50,000, ceiling price increases. So the lower the ceiling price is, or the lower the T-share rate is, the lower the ceiling price is, which gives you like a lower theoretical price for ICOSA. So when we're looking at these theoretical prices, if you want to keep them, I guess you could say, more conservative, you can just use our current T-share rate for today, because once you use like 100,000 T-share rate, the ceiling price really starts to open up. And then even 95% down, which is where we are right now, we're still going to have like a pretty good US dollar value. But since the T-share rate is so high, that ICOSA to HEX ratio is going to be a lot higher. So it's just more conservative to keep a lower T-share rate, is basically just what I'm saying at the end of the day. So I'm not sure how bullish any of the viewers are on watching HEX, but I'll try and keep these sort of numbers conservative, I guess you could say. 30 cents is still like 100x from the bottom, so I don't know how conservative that really is. But I mean, Richard says not that it's going to happen, but HEX did a 10,000x, PulseChain can do a 10,000x, and they're designed to do it. Whether they do or not is up to life and chance, but these things are well within the realm of possibility. So 30-cent HEX, I think Richard also said HEX could do a million X, which would put HEX somewhere at like $50 from the bottom or something like that. So 30-cent, kind of a huge price target, still conservative. Again, we're looking at sort of like bull market estimates here. So like, I'm not trying to go too crazy or anything like that, or like too bearish or anything like that too. But even here, 99% off the ceiling price at a 30-cent HEX at a extremely low T-share rate, which is lower than the one we have today, you would still see a ICOSA price of 12 cents, which again, it's not as good as what HEX would do from here, right? And that would only give you a ratio of 0.41 HEX per ICOSA, which is this. I don't necessarily know if this would ever happen. Especially some of this stuff could change when Alex releases his new product. When or if Alex releases his new product, some of these numbers could change. I think he's gonna start making the ceiling price like more dynamic in the system, so you're always able to sort of extract your value out in ICOSA, but just some of it's staked. But that's sort of like a topic for a different day. Anyways, even if we're looking like 95%, which is basically where we are right now, and it can hold this level, right? There's basically, if there's people buying it, because everything is supply and demand, right? The only way the ICOSA price is really going to go up is if people are buying it. There's Hart's law and liquidity bonding, but if we want like good X's, people will probably have to buy more than they sell. That's just a given. But even if we just maintain our ratio with HEX, well, with right now we were 2.7, and this is 95% off 2.29, and that still gives us a 69-cent ICOSA if HEX reaches 30 cents in this bull market. And that's like, this is extremely, extremely, extremely conservative, right? And this is at a low ceiling price, and I'll show you why this matters. This is the HSI buyback calc. Actually, let's look at the ceiling price demonstration. So the reason why we have a ceiling price, I kind of went over this a little bit earlier, but the reason why we have a ceiling price, it's not a physical ceiling price. Like, there's not like some price god that has the price ceiling set there where like the price hits the ceiling price and then it can't go over. That's not how it works. There's a ceiling price in US dollar that's derived from the ceiling price in HEX times the US dollar price of HEX. So there's a few different ways of looking at it, but basically what it is your arbitrage, the arbitrage value you would get when they're basically when you could trade in your HSI and get an equivalent amount of ICOSA in terms of the US dollar value. That would be your ceiling price. Now, if it goes over the ceiling price, you could create an HSI, trade it into ICOSA, immediately sell your ICOSA for a profit. That would be going over the ceiling price, and then that would be essentially arbitrage. But right now we're below the ceiling price. Now, basically how this is working is, let's say we had a 29,000 share rate, which is lower than today, 30-cent HEX price. The cost of a 555 T share would be around $2,900, and you would get around 210 ICOSA per 555. So you sort of see the math here. ICOSA, because one of the only ways you can bring it into existence, especially right now with the yield so low, is through this HSI buyback. So if people want to actually bring ICOSA into existence, they could go off the market, which is a cheaper way to do it than the buyback right now. But eventually, if enough people want to purchase ICOSA, or they want to get their hands on ICOSA, they're gonna want to go off the market. And that's sort of the game theory behind it, is if you're below the ceiling price and you want the ICOSA, you would go to the market. But if it's above the ceiling price and you want ICOSA, you would go through the smart contract itself. So that's sort of like how you could picture this, is 210 ICOSA you would mint from the smart contract for a 29,000 share rate 555 HSI, and 20% over the ceiling price of ICOSA, your value that you would mint would be $3,400. So you could see, if imagine you had a $2,900 stake, you traded it in, you immediately got $3,500. You could sell it, right? That makes perfect sense. But 20% under, you could see, like, if you traded in $2,900 for $2,300, maybe you wanted to exit your stake. That was a better deal than emergency end staking, and you still got to extract some value out and you're happy. That's still good, right? But 99% below the ceiling price, this is when you're trading in essentially $3,000 for $30. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do. And if people do that, it's probably extremely dumb. Maybe since it's a 5555, you would actually get more value out if you needed to end the stake doing it like this, just trading it into the buyback. But since the US dollar value of ICOSA is so low right now, you would barely be able to extract any value. Plus 99% below the ceiling price. I'm not sure if we'd ever get this low. I guess it is possible. This is crypto. Things can go a lot lower than we expect, and they can go a lot higher than we expect. But this just goes to show like how relatively low ICOSA would have to fall to get this minus 99% under the ceiling price. But even if we look at different predictions. Like if we were to increase the share rate, let's say to 40,000, and we take a look at minus 99%, it's still a 24 cent ICOSA, which is probably pretty bad. But in the long run, plus if the yield probably won't kick on if we're minus 99% below the ceiling price. But I mean, we're speculating here, and the thing about ICOSA right now as well is, since we're so low below the ceiling price and Hex is so cheap, you can mint so much ICOSA right now is one of the things. And since it's built upon, it's sort of derived from the T-share value, when the T-share is more expensive, ICOSA is going to intrinsically just become more expensive. And when the T-share is cheap, ICOSA is going to become, by sort of definition, more inflationary, less scarce, less sort of valuable. The way I could explain this is, let's say I had $10,000 of economic energy and I turned that all into T-shares. Since Hex is so low in price right now, I'd be able to get a lot of T-shares for my 10 grand of economic energy. And then if I traded that into the buyback, I would be able to inflate a lot more ICOSA because I would have a lot more T-shares. Now, if fast forward into the future, let's say the T-share rate goes back to 10 grand per T-share, like 10 grand USD per T-share, then I would only be able to, like, for my 10 grand of economic energy that I was bringing into the system, I would only be able to like make one T-share. And then if I wanted to trade that into ICOSA, I would only be able to mint one T-share worth of ICOSA for that same amount of economic energy, just because the Hex price is either up or down. So ICOSA, it has inflationary and deflationary mechanics depending on the prices of these other assets, but its main value, its intrinsic value, is derived from the T-share. And I could pull up some like outlandish things where even 99% off, you could see some insane gains. Plus, I'm not. We'll see what Alex has planned when he releases his thing. But one of the biggest things with staking ICOSA was on Ethereum. The gas fees got out of control, especially just before PulseChain launched. It was like 200, 350, 100 Gwei, just like on average every single day. And to do all of the stakes, it was cheaper than Hex staking, but like the fees would start to add up. Now, what was nice about ICOSA back then was the price was doing a lot better, so you would like you would feel a lot better about being able to pay the gas fees on Ethereum. But now that the price isn't as good and we're down a lot more, I think Alex is going to release, and like in his smart contract, I believe it's going to be like interoperable between PulseChain and Ethereum. So even if you have and are purchasing Ethereum coins today, whether it's Hedron or ICOSA, you'll be able to interact with the new contract when or if that does come out with whichever coin you have. For example, I believe in the HSI markets right now, there are two separate entities. So you have HSI markets on PulseChain and you have HSI markets on Ethereum. Now, if I wanted to bid on an HSI on Ethereum, I would have to use the Hedron that's native to Ethereum. So I would have to like buy that off of Uniswap or 1inch or wherever, and then go use that eHedron to like bid on the stuff. Now with the new smart contract, I'll be able to use pHedron or eHedron. So it doesn't really matter. You can just bridge it over and use it. Now the cool thing is about that too is let's say eHedron costs less than pHedron and you want to bet 100 million Hedron. All your betting, or sorry, all your bidding is 100 million Hedron. It doesn't matter if it's pHedron or eHedron. So if you just need 100 million or a billion and you need to go off market, you can just buy the cheaper version, either on PulseChain or on Ethereum, bridge it over or not bridge it over depending on where you've purchased it, and do your interactions with the smart contract that way. So I think he's going to surprise us. He's going to have some cool stuff planned. We're going to get new contract addresses with new tokens, which also means a new chart. Because I know right now, like if we take a look at the ICOSA chart, it's not a pretty chart. Like it's like, I'm pretty sure if you showed Richard Hart that chart, he would probably make fun of it and be like, damn, this thing has only gone down and to the right, etc., etc., etc. There was lots of money to be made sort of in the beginning of ICOSA, especially with all that yield and being so close to that ceiling price, plus HEX was probably 10 times more valuable as well, which makes a T-share 10 times more valuable. But I think right now it's time to sort of be contrarian. No one's paying attention to ICOSA. The last update we had was sort of a little while ago, and we haven't heard much since. So I think there's some stuff coming around the corner. We'll see when Alex maybe releases his product on testnet, and we'll be able to play around with the new figures and stuff. But